Breaking the heat wave and stormy weekend for the Midwest. More info coming soon. Hello everybody, it's meteorologist Jacob Campbell here with your WeatherNow forecast. So before I get into the video, I want to make a couple of announcements. The first one is I released a shorter version of this forecast earlier today, link in the top right hand corner now. So I encourage you guys to watch that because I do put some details in it that I don't necessarily in here, such as simulated reflectivity. You can see like a 24-hour change in temperature between yesterday and today and all that kind of stuff. And the second thing is please subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Feel free to look through the rest of the videos, but by subscribing you are really supporting me. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So we see right now we've got this trough area coming in from Canada, and we've got a little ridge right here. Now this ridge is what's bringing all of the heat and all of the humidity from the Gulf of Mexico and just parking it over pretty much a significant portion of the southeastern United States, and even in parts of like Illinois and Indiana and Ohio and Missouri right now. We can take a look at where these like little contours are coming from. So they're coming from Mexico and whatnot. And while it has dried out, thanks to the flow really coming from a more inland area, the heat is still there, seeing as though we're getting air coming in from the south. If you live to the south of these contours here in the Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas area, you are getting all of this humid and warm air coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, which is really unpleasant. And so for right now, it's here to stay for the next couple of days, but I'm glad to say there will be a break in it. So if we move forward the next few days here, we see that as this trough moves to the north and kind of flattens out, for the Great Lakes at least, a lot of these states are going to begin getting their wind from the north, which is really going to help cool things down. And this ridge down here is going to kind of squish and get elongated. So more into Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, you're getting more of that humid air from the Gulf of Mexico, whereas more northern areas are no longer getting that system parked over them. And then as we move in, we see for a really brief moment here, there is this enormous ridge that's going to form, which is just going to, first of all, spark some severe storms out here in the Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma area. But not only that, bring some of the heat back for one final push to the east over here. And so as we proceed into the day on Saturday and Sunday, and Sunday we have this amplification right here of the 500 millibar level winds. We also see a separation here between, we look from about Kansas all the way up through to the Great Lakes into Canada. We see that the contours are expanding, which an expanding contour means divergence of air. The air is moving away from each other, which means there could be rising air in that. So the air has to evacuate aloft because you've got rising air beneath it. So it'll evacuate in either direction, which suggests that there may be an updraft there, a front moving through or some sort. And you'll see here in a minute that that is actually a cold front moving through, bringing nice cool air for a lot of these states that have absolutely just been hammered by this ridge down to the south. And so we see at long last, this trough really begins to push through. Air is funneling in from Canada, which will help cool things off. If you live in Michigan, you're going to see very, very cool temperatures. And if you live out here to the west, usually a trough to the east means a ridge to the west. So you're going to get more warm air kind of moving in, which is probably going to be nice for you guys because it's been kind of frigid, and especially some of these more northern areas in the Pacific Northwest. It won't warm up too much, but it will warm up enough that it's definitely going to be noticeable. And so we'll proceed through here. And then what we end up seeing is we're going to get more of a fall-like pattern kind of set in at the end of next week. So you've got a whole week of crazy hot and cold moving in. But it looks like the jet stream and the 500 millibar level will kind of stabilize by the end of the week, really bringing a more east to west breeze, which will help keep things about average for quite a bit of the country. Now we're going to take a look at the geopotential heights here. So here's that trough that's out to the west right now, just bringing in the cool air from Canada. And over here we've got the ridge, and along these, where these contours here begin to scrunch up, this is where our fronts are. So we do have a cold front right now, producing a squall line actually out here in Kansas, and really following that same kind of path here. And we have a warm front up to the north, kind of stretching off of this low pressure system here, which is producing just some general instability in the area. And there's the ridge, the area of high pressure, and not too much to write home about there, but typically where these contours get scrunched up the most, you see the most precipitation. So this is Thursday night into Friday, and we can see that the contours are especially scrunched up here through Wisconsin, Michigan, parts of Canada, and then also New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, a lot of these New England states. And there's actually a marginal risk for severe storms as of right now for that New York area, which the primary threat right now is wind and hail. Tornadoes are taking a kind of back seat to it, but there is a marginal risk for all threats at the moment. We're going to proceed on, and I'll show you the SPC map here in a little while. Moving on here, we see that you can really tell where the air is flowing from in here because you don't have a lot of like small lines. And so you do have a lot of the continental air kind of drier moving in through all of these states in these contours. But moving off of that, we're going to take a look at Cape now. So right now there's quite a bit of Cape for fall time at least, stretching from Illinois down through Mexico. And along this line, we're seeing these pop-ups in this, not pop-ups, sorry, this squall line forming and pushing off to the east. And eventually that will kind of give away as the line breaks down. We do see another kind of push of Cape here for the Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas area, which actually we'll take a look and see if we can see what hour are we on? 72 hours. So yeah, there is actually a front that's going to move through this weekend on Saturday. So we could take a look at that and see if there will be. Actually, we saw that on the 500 millibar winds as well. Yeah, this kind of scrunching up of the contours, which doesn't usually lead to thunderstorm activity. That could be the limiting factor there. But we do have an increase in wind speed where that short wave is moving through, which will help tilt the updraft. So you've got the tilted updraft mixed with a fair bit of Cape and a front moving through. So there's the lifting mechanism that you need, and then you have everything else to kind of extend these thunderstorms. We could see a squall line form out of this, which the SPC has noted, and they are considering issuing a marginal risk of severe storms, of course, when it gets to the day, because it's still 4 days out. And so then that proceeds off to the east, kind of dissipating with time. So we'll take a look at the temperatures. Right now, it is absolutely warm in the east of the country right now. You can see that jump from just 6 hours, going from the 70s in a lot of this eastern portion of the U.S. to the 90s and the 80s in a lot of the eastern portion right now. Moving in, you can see that cold front really start to set up and then push off, bringing some rather cool nighttime air for Indiana, Illinois, Iowa. That cold air is still setting into that to the northwest. And then we'll see with time this temperature gradient really breaks down. And so at 18Z on Sunday, where we had throughout most of the Great Lakes temperatures in the 90s, we're seeing the temperatures in the 60s and 70s, which is great news. The 90s are really being kind of contained down to the south. And then we see that cold air just kind of takes up most of the northern half of the country with more fall-like or October-like temperatures, at least 60s across really almost all of the United States. New England and parts of Washington are the only areas that are seeing cooler than 60s, and then Southern California and parts of Florida are the only ones that are really seeing above like the 60s and 70s level. So with that, we'll take a look at the temperature anomalies. And so we have an anomalous region of warm air where we are expecting it, where that ridge is setting in and going to be thankfully moving out of the region with temperatures in Indianapolis 23 degrees above average. And 23, if I'm not mistaken, is the highest number that I've seen. I see actually a couple of 23s, so one in Indianapolis, one in Lafayette. 24 up here in between Lafayette and Chicago. There's 23 out here near, I guess, north of St. Louis. It's oppressively hot. Talk about sweating every time you walk outside in October, mind you. Enough with that little rant, but you do see that temperatures, below average temperatures, are starting to set in and moving to the east with that front that moves through. So Friday, 6Z, it's going to be about Indianapolis, where it was at 23 degrees above average. It's only going to be 3 degrees above average. And then anywhere really to the west of Indiana is going to see either normal or below average temperatures, with that core, that low pressure up here in the cold sector of the low pressure system, seeing temperatures down to minus 13 degrees. Minus 13 degrees below average. Double negatives, my bad. Anyway, and then we see on Friday 20 degrees below average up here for New Hampshire, as this really low pressure system kind of overtakes the majority of the United States and brings cooler air from Canada. You can see in Canada, where the cool air is migrating to the south, warm air is migrating to the north, or above average air, I should say. It may still be cold up there, it's just slightly above average. And we'll push throughout the week here, and there are a couple of flashes of warmer temperatures here through Texas all the way up into Canada, but for the most part, we see not only are the below average temperatures kind of remaining dominant for most of this amount of time, it's also taking up a really large chunk of the United States, pushing finally off to the east and really encompassing most of the eastern half of the United States, while the western half warms up with temperatures ranging from 12 degrees above average in Southern California to about 13 and 14 degrees above average in Montana. We'll take a look at the shear really quickly. I think hour 72 was an interest. So we do have that shear, which helps tilt the updraft in that Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado area around the time that the thunderstorms should be developing. And actually this appears to be thunderstorms cutting off the flow, so that it's slowing down once they hit the thunderstorms, forcing the thunderstorms over, that's what this little area of a lack of wind shear could be, or this could just be mountain ranges, and I could be overthinking that, which seems like that could be correct. Anywho, we're going to run over to the Storm Prediction Center really quickly. Day one, right now, we've got the marginal risk from Oklahoma over to Illinois, and then a little marginal risk here for New York and Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Risk for tornadoes is only at 2% down here for the Kansas, Missouri area. High wind threat is at 5% from Texas up to Illinois, and then 5% over here as well in that marginal risk. And then hail is less than 5% in all areas, so it's mainly going to be a wind event, which is what most squall lines tend to produce. So anyway, I hope that you all enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you and have a great day.